Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode number 19 of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. This is my episode. I wore number 19 in high school. I told Jacob I was going to say it. I had to stand by it. Number 19. I'm right up there with like Peyton Manning and that stuff. Greatest number 19 to ever wear that specific
I'm
uniform.
just gonna leave the call right now. That's
In
too
Bearcat
much.
history. They got new jerseys like 2 years after I left, and no one wore 19 the one bridge year. So can't argue with it. But
They probably
that's
said we
neither.
lost too many games with him. We need to purge
Hey,
this bad energy.
we made state 2 out of 3 years, is all I'm saying. Not because of me.
Right.
Anyway, we have a lot to talk about. Of course, coming off week 1 of the NFL season. Picks Sean won, if you saw that in our post on elisportsnetwork.com. Also, Jacob and I lost our locks already. It was a weird week of football. We're going to jump right into it. Obviously, something special about week 1 is the overreactions.
Yes.
Everyone sees something, they blow it out of proportion. So that's what we did. We both came up with 4 overreactions of the NFL season. Jacob, I'm going to throw it to you. What's your first overreaction?
Saquon, comeback player of the year. I know you don't like that award very much, but Saquon and the Giants sure looked hot against the Titans, right? I mean, you see a Titans game and you think you know who the feature back is going to be of that game, but Saquon just dwarfed Henry in stats, in relevancy, and Giants came home with a win because of it.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants going for 2 late in that game as well. And he
Yeah.
had told the players that, hey, do you guys want to go for 2? And everyone was all about it. And yeah, why not give the ball to Saquon? He was unbelievable. Helped my fantasy team out with Aaron Rodgers and Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones laying an egg. So really thankful for him for a week 1 win. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I was leaning towards that when I gave it to you. Saquon was just a monster. He's coming out with a chip on his shoulder, and he was unbelievable in week 1. I mean, the pass catching threat as well. I think a lot of people forgot about that. He's out to prove something this year. He's off to a real good start about that. Mine is more centered around my team, the Green Bay Packers. I had to have one about them after another letdown week 1. Not only will it be Tom Brady's final season in the NFL, it'll be Aaron Rodgers' final season in the NFL. He looked miserable on the sidelines week 1. And of course, it didn't get off to a good start with Christian Watson dropping what was an easy touchdown. First play of the game, got wide open down the field. Rodgers put the ball exactly where he needed to. Watson just flat out dropped it, wasn't targeted until about 2 minutes left in the game. So he just did not look like he was enjoying himself.
No.
Even week 1 last season when they were getting blown out by the Saints, he still was kind of like, it's no big deal. It's week 1.
Yep.
So we'll see where he goes from here. But man, he just looks miserable. Doesn't look like he's having fun. Looks like he'd rather be doing ayahuasca out of the country. So we'll see how he comes back this week, but it is not looking good. We'll see if he really wants to stand in there and get hit like he did in that game for a couple more years.
Other offers coming in, Jeopardy or McAfee. I mean, he's got options. He can do other things. I don't know. He's not looking like he's just straight up not having a good time so far this year.
No. He only outscored Jordan Love by 1 point in fantasy football, by the way. So just saying, Jordan Love, he's hot. So what's your number 2?
J-Lo. My number 2, Cowboys are finished already. I had them go into the NFC Championship game. Dak is hurt. They do not have the targets they need. Mike McCarthy is going to be jobless real soon. The defense was not looking good. They're done. I don't think they're going to be making the playoffs in that division with how they played this Sunday. That was rough to watch.
Yeah, I disagree with the defense. I think the defense actually played all right for how much they were on the field. They're on the field a lot. Tom Brady did not have his A game either, so maybe that helps. Micah Parsons is a freaking animal. I did remember that. But most of the time, overreactions after week 1 are far-fetched, but I think you nailed that one. I think the Cowboys are in some deep trouble. Zeke didn't look good. They couldn't, even when Dak was playing, he looked inaccurate. He was in trouble a lot in that game. And yeah, with how good the Eagles looked and even the Giants, the Commanders, the Cowboys are in deep, deep trouble. I think you're 100% right there. I think they won't even get the playoffs.
And you mentioned, Zeke was not looking like A grade Zeke. But when they brought him out, Pollard looked good running the ball. But whenever it was a pass play with Pollard, if he needed to pass block, they went right through him. There is a big difference between Zeke pass blocking and Pollard pass blocking. That's a lot of P's there. And it was not pretty. And Dak is not feeling too good right now. I sounds like he might be back sooner than what I was expecting when he left the game. But it was not a good start.
Yeah, no, they're in deep trouble. One more thing I want to touch on the game. It's not about the Cowboys, but Leonard Fournette looked real good with Tampa Bay. If he can play like that,
yeah.
Watch out. My next one is about more quarterbacks. This one is Trey Lance is a worse pick than Mitchell Trubisky was. Remember, the Bears took Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson today, so buckle up there. But Trey Lance looked awful. I know the weather was bad in Chicago, but man, you need a little bit more from that. I mean, you traded up for him. He hasn't won an NFL game yet. He's just got outperformed by Justin Fields, who also was playing in bad weather. So, I mean, he just – I was still baffled that they're playing him over Jimmy Garoppolo. You got a guy who took you to a Super Bowl, took you to multiple NFC championship games, and you're playing Trey Lance, who just looks lost out there. Mitchell Trubisky, he took the Bears to the playoffs, again carried by a defense, but also hampered by an incompetent head coach, and he got there twice. So he's capable of winning football games. I mean, he just beat Cincinnati, again, carried by defense, much better coach. So we'll see if he can continue that. But Trey Lance, I think I've seen enough to call him a bust.
Yeah, they were my lock pick of the week. Niners were going to beat the Chicago Bears. How could they not? And it was an ugly game. Honestly, the Niners defense didn't look that crisp. There were a lot of plays where Bears guys were all alone and they should not have been. Debo looks like he's doing everything for that offense he can, running the ball, yards after catches, just doing everything he can for the Niners to win. And it's not enough with the rest of that offense. I kind of thought that I was a doubter beforehand, but I'm right there with you. Honestly, like, that's not changing my mind at all.
Yeah, no, bad performance, bad start to the season for the Niners, who are trying to contend for a division. But luckily, everyone but Seattle had a bad week one in that division as well. What's your number 3?
Steelers are 100% a playoff team. Just look at that defense. They made the Bengals, the Super Bowl contending Bengals, look like kitty cats. I mean, it was bad. Blocked kicks, 5 turnovers, an offense that was able to get ahead early, find the end zone, stay ahead till regulation, and then take care of business in the overtime. Looked real good in week 1. Looking like they might be ready to start a top tier rookie quarterback though, and make that postseason run. I'm thinking. I don't know. What do you think about the Steelers?
I am very upset that I talked myself out of putting them in second and giving them a wild card. I mentioned it on our NFL
Ravens are
preview.
Looking hot too. I don't know if
I'll talk about them here in just a second. But
good.
yeah, Pittsburgh looked real good. Minka Fitzpatrick's a monster. Good news about TJ Watt. Doesn't sound like he's going to have surgery. So 6 weeks, and they're hoping he'll be back, which is a very good sign for that team.
Yes,
Chase Claypool, who we heard.
Monster.
It's terrifying. Chase Claypool, who we heard how bad he looked in preseason. I don't know. He's making some big plays. They're using him in the run game a little bit. I really like that. He's an athletic freak. So we'll see if they continue that. But yeah, Najee Harris, a little worried. He did bang up that foot. Obviously, that was a concern in preseason. So we'll see. Hopefully, he's able to get back out there. But yeah, this team looks like a team who can definitely make a run for a wild card, because I have, as one of my overreactions, the Baltimore Ravens are going to run away with the AFC North. They beat, I know they just beat the Jets, but that defense looked real good. They lost some guys in that ball game due to injury. Fuller done for the year. They still don't even have their A run game. They're using Kenyon Drake. They don't have J.K. Dobbins back. Dobbins more explosive than Kenyon Drake. Lamar didn't look super great, and yet they rolled. There was never a question that they were going to lose that game. Mark Andrews barely got involved. They did have Rashad Bateman catch a long touchdown, so maybe he can still be that explosive guy, kind of like a Hollywood Brown was.
Right.
But man, they just look so good defensively. And again, I know who it was against. I don't want to hear it. They played good football. They didn't try and force anything when they had the big lead. They just knew their defense was going to get the job done. It was about killing clock early in that game, and they rolled. They dominated.
And let's be honest, Ravens are one of those teams that when they need to kill the clock, they absolutely can, because they have so many options when they're running the ball. That is a bit of an overreaction, I think, but I like it. I think you're onto something. I like the Ravens this year a lot better than I did 7 days ago. So
yeah. All right. Finish us off. Your last overreaction.
Kicking is a lost art. Nearly 20 missed kicks this week. I'm talking 3-pointers. I'm talking extra points. I'm talking kickoffs going out of bounds. I'm talking blocked field goals. I'm talking doinking off the uprights. I'm talking doinking off the big screen in Dallas. Just everything that prevented a ball from going where it was supposed to go off of a player's foot was happening. There were just divine intervention force fields going on. And some of these were game winners. I mean, 64 yards is a lot harder in Seattle than it is in Denver, I think. That was an interesting final drive, we'll say that. But it ended up with a missed kick. Bengals, they need to look for a new long snapper. I'm telling you that much. I don't know if I can completely go ahead.
Well, their long snapper did get hurt before or in pregame during that game, so that was a backup. So
yes,
we'll see if they're
they
able
need
to.
A new backup. They need a new backup.
That's true.
Colts, they're parting ways with Goggles. I don't know if you saw that. They hired 2 new kickers today. They're gonna see who is gonna be their place kicker here soon, but no kickers are safe. It is not a good year for the brand. That was rough week 1 for special teams.
I don't want you counting that kick missed by McManus last night to count as he should not have been kicking. That was some of the worst clock management, some of the worst play calls.
Yes.
And
did you see Peyton Manning there?
Well, yes. We now know though the NFC Championship Packers-Bucks. It had to have been Nathaniel Hackett who decided to kick that field goal. It was not Matt LaFleur or Aaron Rodgers. We can confirm now it was Hackett who made that call.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, there were some good kicks. Cade York from Cleveland hitting that game-winning 58-yarder. Right there, I think we're going to see a shift. There is an upside to drafting a kicker. Cade York, Evan McPherson last year, and I know he missed in Cincinnati, but there were some issues with that whole process, and one was, of course, blocked. There's definitely upside to drafting a kicker rather than going and getting one of these aging vets.
Right. Or Koo was on point on Sunday, and I know he ended up getting one blocked because he had to get that extra leg and angle it down a lot lower. But yeah, invest in your kickers. NFL teams you probably, what is that, 50 points left off the board?
It's big issues there. But I also want to talk about the kicking situation in Kansas City. Harrison Butker nailing that 50-plus yarder with one step. And then they bring in Justin Reed, who's an absolute stud at safety. This dude can bomb kicks. They're in a mighty fine situation. Have that guy go out there and kick off.
Missed one of his, but
it's a safety. Go out there, keep Keep Butker on the sideline for kickoffs. He doesn't need to be going down making tackles. Reed's putting it through the back of the end zone, and he can go lay down a hit as well. I think that is a great weapon for the Chiefs to have. I hope that they utilize that because
especially with Butker being hurt. I mean, he's hobbling. Yeah, have somebody else be your kickoff starter and let Butker do what he does better than really anyone in the league.
And just go for it on fourth down. You have the best offense in football. Just go. You don't need to kick field goals until Butker's back.
Wow.
Just go for it, except for PATs. All right.
No punter
my final. When Butker's back, you can kick PATs and field goals. Go for it. But there's no need to replace.
But I'm saying, what about the punter? No punter on that roster? Just
punting's healthy. The punter's healthy. I'm talking about you don't need to replace the kicker on your 52 man. Bring on someone else who can actually help on defense or offense or special. Go make a tackle on special teams.
There you go.
Until Butker's ready to come back. I mean, there's no need to when you have kind of Justin Reed there. It's something I never even thought about. But hey, we're here. We're here. This is the modern age. My last one.
Adapt and overcome.
My last one is also in the AFC North, so a lot of AFC North love in these overreactions. The Browns are going to be in the playoff hunt by the time Deshaun Watson comes back. They went to Carolina against their former quarterback, and I had Carolina as a lock. I thought Baker was going to go off. He played an all right game, bad first half, but he got things going. But this Browns defense is so good, and they know who they are. They're going to run the football. They're not going to try and be pretty. I mean, they're having these two-back sets with Kareem Hunt lining up at fullback and Nick Chubb in the backfield. They just know what they're trying to do. You also have Brissett who can run at quarterback. That's what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball at you. If you load up the box, Brissett can make a throw. I mean, there's no question about that. He was finding Donovan Peoples-Jones pretty well. So I think this team's good enough to be right around 500 by the time Deshaun comes back. They have a week schedule to start before it picks up. And I think they're going to be in the wild card hunt all the way until Deshaun comes back. And what is that, week 12, 13? I can't remember the bye week.
Oh, I remember.
Well, I remember. You know what? Let's just go into that. Because our next topic, we're going to get a little serious. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson for the first time because we know 11-game suspension.
11-game suspension.
It's such a sensitive topic, of course. So we're going to try and do this as best as we can. First things first, you can't tell me that the NFL decided 11 games was the right number. No. They saw when they play Houston, they saw that it'd be a good story. So they're like, well, here, we can do 11 games. He comes back against Houston. Yep. That's 100% what they did. You can't convince me otherwise. They're in it for the story. Mm-hmm. There's just still so much going on about it. I don't see how he's even playing this season.
Exactly.
It's the waters are so murky with that whole thing. You have to set a precedence, I guess. And the NFL has an ugly history of this sort of thing. I mean, we go back to Ray Rice, 4 games for what he did. It's ugly. The NFL takes a lot of heat about it, so you think they'd fix it. And I don't get the point of bringing in this judge to oversee things when you're like, no, we're not even going to listen to you. We're going to come up with our own thing. I'm going to let
two judges.
It just made no sense.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in how this played out. And the NFL has a bad history of abuse. And to me, sexual abuse is the worst thing that one human being can do to another. And it starts in the colleges. I won't bring up specific names, but there have been a lot of players that the accusations are there. I'm not going to pretend that everyone knows what happened, but then the accusations disappear and everything is just swept under for the name of football. And then the NFL expects that to be better when they do basically the same thing. I mean, there are a lot of victims coming forward. And for that situation not even to be resolved yet, like you said, for the NFL to hire a judge, decide we're gonna, we the NFL on one side, the players union on the other side, we're both going to listen to what this judge has to say. Judge makes a ruling, which I thought was a very disappointing ruling. And then the NFL's like, no, we're not satisfied with that. We're going to come up with another judge. And they went through the process of hiring a second one and having all of that litigation in place. And then they came to their decision beforehand. And yeah, 11 weeks, not an even 10, not an even season, 11 weeks, because week 12, they can make a profit off of that added drama. I'm not I'm not a fan of that. It feels like the entire Brown season, there's just a bad taste in my mouth already, and it hasn't even began.
Yeah, it's you hit it right on the head with they're making a profit off of this. They're finding a way how they can exploit this. I don't see how Watson isn't getting a year, because remember, he kind of made the decision that he didn't want to play for Houston last year. It wasn't the NFL saying you're not playing. It was Deshaun Watson saying I'm not going to play.
Right.
And I get it. It's hard. It's so hard to come up with how the number of victims relates to games. And you're not going to have that good, because honestly, you wouldn't want to see him play for maybe ever again. I'm not here to tell you whether Deshaun Watson's innocent or guilty. I don't know what's going on in that situation. I wasn't there, obviously. I have my opinions on what I think, but I'm not going to tell you he's innocent or guilty. But it's just, this whole thing's still going on. It's still developing. How are you going to let him play with this going on off the field? I mean, we compare it to what is going on with the former Bills punter now, Matt Araiza. They got rid of him immediately. I think the Bills still handled that poorly because they were kind of keeping it under wraps. And then people found out about it, and then they made their choice. These teams got to do better. There's things bigger than football.
Right.
Football, I know we all love it. Anyone who knows me will tell you I'm one of the biggest sports junkies you'll ever meet. There's things bigger still. They're just things that are more important. This is more important. Deshaun Watson should not be playing football until everything's settled. We know everything. We know what the courts find. That's the minimum.
And if everything is resolved and it's not the action that I was hoping for, I can get behind that, because somebody ruled this is concluded. This is what we found. This is what we're going to do moving forward. But when it's still an ongoing issue, I think of Trevor Bauer. Not the same situation, but similar. And Trevor Bauer is not playing baseball. Hasn't played baseball since this thing went down.
It's been over a year now.
Yep. The team did not try to find a way around and get him to play baseball. The league did not have any of the benefit of the doubt until we sort this out. It's you sit tight and we'll figure out what's going on and then get back to you. And for the league to just say, well, yeah, Browns, you can structure your contract so this suspended year doesn't really affect you, and football first. That's rough.
And I look at it also, I think MLB handled the Trevor Bauer. They're doing a great job. I think they did perfectly in saying, like you said, sit tight while things get figured out. But they're not perfect either. I look at the Marcell Ozuna situation. I know it's different.
Every situation.
What they actually
it's so hard to compare. But
yeah, I don't get why he's playing right now. I think there's all sorts of issues, especially he's had multiple. So, I mean, these leagues got to get it figured out. They got to have some consistency as well, because right now it is just it feels like they're throwing darts at a dartboard almost.
Yep.
And they have to have some lay of the law, some groundwork in there that, hey, you do this, this is the punishment.
Right.
There's no way around it.
This is the limbo that you go to until we figure things out. Honestly, part of that's on the players union as well. I feel like they need to come up with okay, while you're suspended, maybe you're suspended without pay, but there's like a buffer in the players union that you get a certain amount for each week or year that you're suspended so your life's not ruined. Because that's the other side of that coin, is you're dealing with life-altering, potentially life-ending accusations. And so having some kind of safety net, but having that zero wiggle room there, I feel like, yeah, like you said, they have to get something in place to just, okay, this is going on. This is the process until we figure out all of the details.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I don't think we have anything else to add on. I think we both voiced our thoughts with that. We're going to take a quick break. Actually, when we come back, I think we're going to talk a little bit of fantasy football before we get into our baseball topics, a little transition that is coming up next year on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
Since 1978, Rogers Key, Card, and Strophe has offered their clients excellent representation in all facets of legal areas as a general practice law firm. They're serving Thurston, Lewis, Mason, Pierce, and Grays Harbor counties. Our team of professionals' focus is on personal injury, family law, criminal defense and DUIs, estate planning, corporate, business, and real estate law. You can find them at budbaylaw.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. It's time for a short segment that's going to be about fantasy football. We're going to more dial in on our family dynasty league. Of course, we're in multiple leagues. I have 4. Jacob, I think you have 2 that we're going in. I'll start.
Thank the Lord. I'm just down to 2.
I had 7 at one point, and I'm like, you know what? I'm telling these 3 I'm out. I can't do it. So I'm happy to cut down to 4. And I went 3-1 this week. And in the league we're going to focus in, I won as well. I beat my brother. It's an 8-team league, so teams are a little stacked, but I won 130 to 106. You had a really good week beating my father, who's the defending champ, 169 to 107. You had a few guys really go off. I also needed multiple. I only had 3 guys scoring double digits, but they carried the team big time. So I'm fortunate to get the win, especially Aaron Rodgers only had 3. Alvin Kamara only had 6. Aaron Jones had 9. The Niners defense kind of fell off in the second half. They were looking real good and disappeared. But I mean, I still have Joe Burrow on my bench. I had the Buffalo Bills defense on my bench, Miles Sanders and Tyreek Hill. I also didn't have George Kittle, who was out. So, I mean, my team's not 100% healthy yet. I'm not even sure where I want to go each week. So it's still a learning thing. But for me, I'm going to make my living off wide receivers. I've got Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins when he comes back, DJ Moore. So, I mean, that's where I'm going to be focused on. But, man, Saquon, if he can play like that, that is going to be mighty helpful for me. I also need Alvin Kamara to get some more touches.
For sure. I, first and foremost, would like to thank Patrick Mahomes for just having an incredible week 1. Looked like MVP, Super Bowl champ from, the Patrick Mahomes of old. And it was
kind of I drafted last year, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, night and day difference. But it was a little scary to have Patrick Mahomes go off because your dad had Kelsey as the tight end. And so especially there at first, if you have a quarterback connecting with any target, the target's going to get more points, obviously. So that was kind of scary. I'm glad that he shared the love a little bit. 5 touchdowns is a very good week. And then, wide receivers, all 3 of mine just went off. Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman Jr., and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas looks like he might be back. That I got him very late in the draft. I was kind of a budget pick and rolling the dice week 1. Towards the end of the game, especially, Saints started to turn it up a little bit, and that paid off. Indy's defense was looking real good, and then they were looking real bad, and then by the end of the game they ended up getting 10, so that's not bad. They had 20 points allowed, a couple of sacks, and a fumble recovery, so decent day for a defense.
Yeah, and my living was made. I don't know if I mentioned these point totals. Jamar Chase with 28, Cooper Kupp with 31, and Saquon Barkley with 32. So, I mean, again, these teams are loaded. We have some higher scoring games. I think Alvin Kamara is going to see a bump up eventually. I don't know why they weren't getting him more involved in offense. I really have issues with the Packers not getting Aaron Jones involved in the offense. He averaged almost 9 yards a touch, so I don't know why he wasn't getting more touches. And my whole thing is week one, I think, is always an anomaly.
Especially with guys, 3 preseason weeks,
Exactly. I think you have guys who have bad weeks that obviously end up having great seasons. Look at Devontae Adams last year. And you also have guys who go off, who kind of come back down to earth a little bit. So we'll see which of those guys are what. I think the tight ends, for the most part, no one really did anything besides Travis Kelce. He had a big week. But, I mean, I'm looking at the rest of Mark Andrews only had 10. Darren Waller had 11, which those are not normal numbers. And there are a lot of high-scoring defenses this week. I mean, multiple.
Yeah, I think week one is always advantage defense.
I mean, just looking, the
Dolphins,
Steelers had 30.
Ravens, Steelers, Bills. I mean, there were a lot had 25, of very high-performing defenses.
I mean, it was just up and down. There were a lot of turnovers, and defenses were making the plays. It wasn't like there were terrible turnovers, just throwing the ball up for the most part. They had to go get it. I look at that Minkah Fitzpatrick pick. That wasn't easy for him. It was
right.
But I think my whole point is I think we're going to learn a lot more in week 2 about what certain players are going to look like. So, but yeah, we both got wins in week 1. You and I are actually in the same division. So we're going to see each other here in a couple weeks. I am actually going to play my dad this week. You're going to play my brother. We'll see how those matchups fare. So. Yeah, and looking at some of the matchups that I have going into week 2, I feel pretty confident. I think I'm going to go Joe Burrow over Aaron Rodgers this week.
Okay.
Rodgers against the Bears. I think they're going to run the ball more. I have Burrow against Dallas. I think that's a better matchup. I think the Bengals are going to be on the field a lot. I think Jamar Chase has a nice big week.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara has a rib issue, so I'm a little worried about that. I moved him down to flex. I have the option of Tyreek Hill and Miles Sanders sitting there, and I am definitely going Bills defense against Tennessee rather than the Niners against the Seahawks because Geno Smith looked pretty dang good.
Yeah. I was given it initial look this morning, and I don't think I'm going to make any changes, at least so far. I know Josh Jacobs had a little bit of a slow week, but I'm expecting him to pick it up. I think that the Raiders really lacked that complete offense that you have when you have a successful run game. So I'm expecting them to really start the game running the ball more. I think that he'll pick it up a little bit. Fournette looked fantastic, not moving him at all. There's a big difference between my top 3 wideouts and my bottom 3. I am not starting Noah Fant over Pitts, even though Pitts had a slow week. So I just, nope, I think I'm keeping things as they are. Colts defense, I don't have a secondary defense. Sometimes I'm, a waiver wire defense starter, but they're playing Jacksonville, and I know they weren't super hot against the Texans, but you're not going to find a more favorable matchup. But nope, I'm good.
And I will say you have some pretty good starters on your roster. Your starting lineup is pretty solid.
For how few
you might run into an issue
is
if there's an injury, because your depth is not necessarily there. It's not in the spot you'd want it to be. So as long as your team stays healthy, I'm expecting to see you in the playoffs. Of course, you won't win the division because I'm going to do that. But I think looking at the teams, including depth, I think, again, I don't mean to sound cocky or anything, but with what me and Sean did, of course, you guys saw Sean on last week's podcast. I think we have to be the top 2 favorites to make the championship just because we have so many picks that we traded for.
Yeah. You were finished with your draft by, I think, round 10, and I started my draft at round 9. Yeah. So I'm happy with how my team is looking right now. But you're right. Depth-wise, going down the stretch, I am not expecting to score the most points every single week. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and of course, my poor mother losing Dak Prescott.
Yeah, that hurt. And he wasn't really performing grade A stuff before she lost him. So
also has CD Lamb. So that's, as you'd call it, a 2 for McDoofer right there. So.
Yeah, right. Well, if she is a listener, offer her Mahomes and Adams for some I'm already in sell mode with how my year went last year. So we'll see how it goes.
1-0 and waving the white flag. That's wow. Anyway, that is going to do it for our
opportunistic is what I am. So
that is going to do it for our fantasy football talk. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, it'll be baseball from here on out. The Dodgers, we're going to talk about them, plus our New York Mets, Mount Rushmore. That is coming up next here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
Good Health Nutrition Center in Centralia is your home base for nutrition. When you visit Good Health Nutrition Center, you'll find the largest selection of vitamins, supplements, and natural remedies. You may be surprised to also find a huge selection of healthy groceries such as gluten-free products, environmentally friendly products, organic fruits and vegetables, and items for specific diets like the diabetic diet. Good Health Nutrition Center, powering students and athletes from the inside out. Good Health Nutrition Center on Harrison in Centralia.
Proactive Physical Therapy in Tumwater, Olympia, and Lacey has made a huge name in training young athletes. But Proactive is much more than that and caters to all individuals coming back from any type of injury. If you have injured yourself and you need to get back in the game or simple day-to-day life activities, call Proactive Physical Therapy today for an appointment and start your way back to feeling good. Proactive Physical Therapy accepts all insurance, car insurance, workers' comp, Medicare, and VA. You owe it to yourself to feel good and productive. So contact Proactive Physical Therapy in Tumwater, Olympia, and Lacey.
Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. It's time for some baseball as we close in on the end of the regular season. The Los Angeles Dodgers last night became the first team to clinch a playoff spot despite some reports they had clinched after Sunday. That turned out to not be true, as the MLB let us know. Now they're good to go. So just 22 games left. Name. Jacob, you have a lot to say about the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. For one of the biggest powerhouses in baseball, we haven't really talked about the Dodgers very much. Maybe, we're just used to their success, so it's been background noise with the rest of the league doing battle with each other. But they are the first team to officially clinch a playoff spot. So, yeah, let's focus on the Dodgers a little bit. First and foremost, let's talk about their offense, because as of today, they are leading the MLB in RBIs, runs, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. And when you lead the league in on-base percentage and slugging, you also lead in on-base slugging. I don't know if you're aware of that math or not, but they're also tied for second in average. They're sitting fourth place in home runs, sixth in stolen bases, which actually shocked me. I did not realize they were such a steal heavy team, but that was pretty solid. Fifth in hits, second in doubles, second in triples, second in walks. Just about every basic measurable stat that you can analyze, they're either leading the pack or not far from it. This team is just an offensive juggernaut. And unlike some other teams that we've discussed this year, they've been doing it April through mid-September. There hasn't really been that, this is a hot streak. Are the Dodgers for real? Or they're really slumping right now. Can they pick it up? It's been just steady wins and work. And then the pitching. Even with some pretty critical injuries, the Dodgers have enjoyed just fantastic pitching success. Average pitchers rising to the occasion. I mean, Gonsolin, Urias, Anderson, all been just lights out, enjoying some of the best baseball of their careers. No, I'm the best baseball of their careers. I'm just gonna just underline it. Kershaw been very solid when he's healthy since coming back from injury, been fantastic. The loss of Walker Buehler would have been a devastating blow to any other team. And they just hardly have slowed down at all. They're first in ERA, they're first in wins, they're first in whip, they're first in batting average against, they're fewest in runs allowed, they're fewest in hits allowed, they're the second fewest in walks given, they're tied for fourth in fewest home runs allowed, they're eighth in strikeouts. And then they have a 9.87 fielding percentage. So if you think that was the little chink in the armor, think again. It's like, what do you do? What do you do with a team like that? There's nothing. What do you do with a team like that, Matthew?
I pick them to win the World Series. That's what I do with a team like that. There's only one singular thing that I think can keep the Dodgers from winning a World Series. It's that most of these pitchers have not had playoff success. That's it. And not that they've been bad in the playoffs. Some of these guys haven't had the opportunity. Tyler Anderson, I mean, he's with Pittsburgh.
Right.
They haven't sniffed the playoffs in a while. Tony Gonsolin, he just kind of burst onto the scene. This is the first time that he'll really be relied on.
Right.
But also, they're going to score runs in the playoffs as well. So it's how do you stop them from outscoring you if their pitching does, struggle a little bit, which we don't know. I can't say that they're going to. We're going to find out what they can do because they will likely have to play Atlanta and New York, barring an upset in the first two rounds. So, I mean, that is that's a tricky situation as well. The Cardinals are going to be in there. They're not an easy matchup, but I can't bet against the Dodgers with how they're playing right now. I mean, this lineup is just ridiculous. Looking at it from top to bottom, I mean, where are your outs? Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Joey Gallo, who's turned his season around, Trace Thompson, who's on fire right now, Cody Bellinger, Chris Taylor. I mean, they're not only 9 deep, they go beyond that. They have everybody is just an absolute killer. Austin Barnes as a backup, Gavin Lux. I mean, there's nowhere you can look at and say, this is where we get our outs. You have to go out there and earn the outs. It's going to take a great rotation to beat the Dodgers. There are teams that have a great rotation, so they can't just sleepwalk their way into a World Series. They're going to have to come in dialed in, which they will. I'm not worried about that. They know that the Mets are going to have to beat DeGrom and Scherzer. Also, Chris Bassett is a stud. The Braves, I mean, Spencer Strider, you have Max Fried, Charlie Morton. Those guys are all great pitchers, not as good as George Kirby, but that's neither here nor there. But again, the Braves are hot. The Mets are absolutely killers with their rotation. So I can't wait for the National League side of things. While I think there's a few teams who can win the American League, anything could happen there. But in the National League, it's going to be those three teams, plus maybe the Cardinals. Oh, my goodness. Those playoff series are going to be insane.
Horse. Yeah.
But so just the Dodgers are ridiculous.
Yeah. So let's do the math. If your team is one of the best hitting offenses and scores more runs than anyone else, and your pitching and defense are also top-notch and allow the fewest runs, you're going to be a very successful ball team. I mean, that's some John Madden math right there. That you're gonna do good. They have a plus 316 run differential.
It's stupid.
Yankees come in second with 206, and that is a very impressive number. 316 is ridiculous. And you know what hurts the most out of all of this? You know who's scarier than the 2022 Dodgers? The future Dodgers. That terrifies me more than anything, because they are constantly ranked as one of the best farm systems in baseball. They don't need to trade away that talent to contend right now, like other teams do. Cough, cough, the Seattle Mariners. They have 7 top 100 prospects. Most of them are ready for the big leagues or real close to it. They just don't need them yet, so let them simmer in the minors a little bit more. And not even included in those top 7, let's talk about James Outman. Hit 2 cycles in a week, in 4 days.
Yeah.
The luxury tax has nothing on the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are in franchise mode, easy settings turned on. What do you do?
I will say that they will have one massive loss after this season. That's Trey Turner. I don't see him sticking around. I don't see anyone you can bring in that can just replace that, but they aren't going to lose as much as most teams would lose with Trey Turner leaving.
Right.
It's crazy. And they right now sit with a record of 97-43 as of recording this, with 22 games left. They have to go 19-3 to tie the Seattle Mariners all-time wins record with 116. Looking at their schedule, they have 2 more games in the series with Arizona. Then they go to San Francisco for 3, go home to play Arizona for 5. Then they host St. Louis for 3. That's the only team with a winning record they face. That's one of 2 teams with a winning record they face, because then they go to San Diego for 3 and then come back home for 6 with Colorado. So, I mean,
and let's be honest, San Diego is not a winning team when they play against the Dodgers. So
no, they get owned by the Dodgers.
That's going to be very difficult to do. I mean, everyone has their off days, even a club like this. 3 losses in 20 games. That's pushing it. I think that the 2001 Mariners lives on, but that's a very good baseball team playing baseball.
Do you know the last time they lost a series, the Dodgers?
I have a feeling
July 25th, 26th, and 27th against the Washington Nationals. Wouldn't have picked that one out, but that's the last time. And before then, they hadn't lost one since June. They're on another level right now. They're on a different planet. I'm glad that my Mariners wouldn't have to see them until the World Series, because yikes, that team is just it's scary.
Until you face every team every year, but we already know your thoughts about that. So
yeah, it's dumb. Those are my thoughts about that. So I think that's going to do it for our talk about the Dodgers. Of course, they are officially in the postseason while other teams continue to
scrambling,
get closer and closer. The Astros very close to clinching the NL wild card. Is still a little bit interesting with the Brewers just 2 back. The AL wild card, I think, is kind of starting to simmer down. I think it's the AL Central, which is the talk of the postseason there between Cleveland, Chicago, and Minnesota. Baltimore's kind of fallen back. So Seattle, Tampa Bay, and Toronto in a good spot. But let's talk about another playoff team, Mount Rushmore style, because we're going to look at the New York Mets.
I like it.
And their Mount Rushmore. That was a smooth transition, if I do say so. But this was an interesting one. I came in thinking we were going to have probably the exact same. You prove me wrong.
I knew we wouldn't. Yeah.
One difference.
We'll finish with that one.
Oh, absolutely. It's an interesting one. A couple of shoo-ins that were really no doubters thinking about. So let's start with one of them. That is Tom Seaver.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Seaver, unbelievable career. I mean, one of the greatest, not just pitchers, the greatest pitcher in Mets history, one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history.
Right.
198 wins, a 2.57 ERA with the Mets, a 1.076 whip, 2,541 strikeouts, 171 complete games.
They were built different back then, weren't they?
Ridiculous numbers there for Tom Seaver. He was just special. And if you ask anyone first met you think of, 99% of the time it's going to be Tom Seaver.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question there. Terrific Tom. Usually cracks top 10 greatest starting pitchers of history. He's up there. First 12 years of his career were spent in Queens, and they were just an incredible 12 years. I mean, you already listed out the stats. He won Rookie of the Year in 67 to start it all off, made 10 All-Star games, won 3 different Cy Young awards as a Met, 3 ERA titles, almost nabbed a few MVPs, constantly leading the league in just a multiple major stats each and every year. It just led the league in different stats. Helped the Mets win their first World Series in 69. Absolute fan favorite. Some issues with the chairman of the board forced the team to trade him to Cincy, but the love for the city just lived on. His numbers retired. He had has a statue in front of the stadium. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, the first player to represent the Mets. And one of the things that I enjoy most about Tom here is that Tom Brady applied for the trademark for the term Terrific Tom and was denied because the U.S. Patent Office did not want to falsely suggest that a connection to Tom Seaver was there. I mean, you tell Tom Brady, no, I am Tom. I am Terrific Tom. And you're having a pretty great career. So just obvious number one choice there.
No question about it. He unbelievable. Let's move on to the bats now. A couple of bats, starting with Mike Piazza.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible player, a great catcher, one of the best offensive catchers of all time. Got to a World Series with the Mets, of course, also played with the Dodgers, so he wasn't a career Met. Nonetheless, he had incredible careers in New York. 296, 373, 542 slash line, 220 career home runs, 655 RBIs, 1,028 hits. He was, I always think of him as the face of the Mets because that's what he was when I was growing up. He was Mr. Met. I mean, that's what he was. That's how everyone looked at him. He was the face of that franchise. Everyone was drawn to him. He's very likable, just a good ambassador for the game. Again, when you're thinking of catchers, most of the time everyone ranks catchers based on how they are defensively. But man, he could hit with the best of them.
Oh yeah. At first, when I listed Piazza, I thought I was being biased because Mike Piazza was my dad's favorite player of all time. All baseball players ever. He was a Dodger fan growing up. Mike Piazza. And I have a stack of mint primo encased in thick plastic cards. I'm not kidding you. They stack half a foot high. The more I looked at it, there was no debate. Had to be included. Just insane. 5-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, very close to snagging a couple of MVPs, wearing a Mets hat in Cooperstown. He played one more season with the Mets than he did the Dodgers, 8 full seasons there. His game-winning home run after the 9/11 attacks is one of the most iconic sports moments of that age. Him and Seaver closed Shea Stadium together, final ceremonial pitch, and then opened Citi Field together with the first ceremonial pitch. One of the most adored Mets and just an extremely successful career. And I bet you if you were to list things and or people that Roger Clemens fears, Mike Piazza would be number one on that list. Don't throw at Mike Piazza after he hits home run after home run against you, and then do not throw a shard of bat in his general direction. Or that was one of the greatest blunders of Clemens' career, and not somebody that you want to get on the bad side of.
I mean, a short temper. I don't know what caused that with Roger Clemens. I have no idea, but
he thought it was the ball.
it was, that was wild. I'm glad you brought that up. If you weren't, I was going to bring that up to kind of close out our talk on Mike Piazza. I don't know what was going on in Roger Clemens' head at that point. But the look on Piazza's face, on Piazza's face is hysterical. If you go back and watch that, it is
doing
funny. Yeah. It's something he had no control over. Bizarre. But yeah, Mike Piazza, incredible career. Let's go on to now, I think, the more modern face of the New York Mets. That's David Wright. I don't think a lot of people know how good David Wright was.
Yeah.
Until you look at his numbers. I mean, 296, 376, 491 slash line, 242 career home runs, 970 RBIs, 762 walks, 1,777 hits, an 867 OPS, the franchise leader in at-bats, hits, runs, doubles, total bases, RBIs, second in home runs. Unbelievable defensively as well. This is all while dealing with a lot of injury issues. He couldn't stay healthy. He was part of the World Baseball Classic. He was Captain America. I mean, this guy was unbelievable. He was fun to watch. It's a shame that he couldn't stay healthy and really enjoy his career Met, though. He was special to watch growing up in the early 2010s. He was unbelievable. So good offensively.
Yes. I'm going to call him the Kyle Seager of the Mets, but add 3 more years of service, about 14 more wins above replacement, and raises career batting average and on-base percentage by about 50 points apiece. I mean, just beloved Met, 7-time All-Star, 2-time Golden Glove, 2-time Silver Slugger, and that is in a loaded position for those awards. Multiple MVP finalist who meant so much to the fans as their team really struggled to put the pieces together. Holds the majority of offensive franchise records. I mean, you listed them all. Just incredible. Yeah, spent his entire 14 years with the Mets. Had to include him. Had to. Just fan favorite.
You still see him pop up every once in a while somewhere along the road with the Mets. It seems like he's always just hanging around.
All of these guys
Edgar with the Mariners. He just is there. He pops up. He's there for the big moments, and he loves being a good role model for the younger generation coming up. It's really good to see a good player. Unbelievable career. Wish he would have been able to go a little bit longer. I wish him and Jose Reyes got to stay together a little bit longer too, because that was a fun combination to watch for sure. Now we get into our difference here. This is not the difference I was anticipating having. But we both have some guys who have a little bit of controversy attached to them.
Yep.
I went with White Dot Gooden, another pitcher, another unbelievable career, another World Series champion, 147 career wins with the Mets with a 3.10 ERA, a 1.175 WHIP, 1,875 strikeouts, 67 complete games, 4-time All-Star with the Mets, won a World Series with the Mets. He won a Cy Young and Triple Crown in the same season. That's wins, strikeouts, and ERA with the Mets. Yeah. He was Rookie of the Year. He led all of baseball in, of course, wins and ERA in 85. Led all of baseball in strikeouts twice for 2 consecutive years. He's in the Mets Hall of Fame. I know there's controversy surrounding him, off the field issues. On the field, though, he was spectacular. I know you're going to talk about, there's some Mets fans who definitely do not look at him and appreciate, I think, or like remembering what he was with the Mets because of the off the field issues. But man, when you have when you're known for a nickname, that's how you know you are an incredible player. Now, don't get me wrong. I think, talk to me in 10 years, I think he's off the list because there's a guy who's pitching for the Mets right now who's pretty dang good. But right now, I got to go with Doc Gooden. Really, really great career.
I mean, that's fair. He's definitely in my honorable mentions. Just a fantastic start to his career, but he just really struggled to focus on baseball. Substance abuse and injuries and off the field distractions really curbed his potential. And I compare him to my fourth player, Strawberry, in that manner. But to me, not quite as prolific of a start and not as big of a connection with the fans. Most Mets fans see Doc as what could have been rather than someone who made their franchise what it is. Still, you mentioned the stats, you mentioned the awards, you forgot he won a Silver Slugger. How about that for an NL
for
pitcher?
A pitcher,
Yep.
Yep.
But I had to go with Darryl Strawberry. Strawberry was about as good of a player as you could be for the first part of his career. Won Rookie of the Year as well. Followed it up with 7 straight All-Star appearances. 5 of them were as a starter. Actually, he had an 8th straight if you include his next season with the Dodgers. I mean, that's impressive. Pulled in 2 Silver Sluggers, won a home run derby title, handful of very close MVP races, just shy of winning it. He helped the team bring home that championship in '86 as well. But mostly, he is still a fan favorite, despite his off the field issues, most of which happened after he left for LA. You know, the fighting with the teammates and the legal issues and the struggles with addiction and both substance addiction and, if you ask him, sex addiction. He actually said he was involved in activities mid-game in between innings. That's rough. And really cut into what could have been just a generational career. But I mean, people were comparing him to Hank Aaron when he was with the Mets. Just an incredible player. 8 years of phenomenal baseball with the Mets. 263, 359, 520 slash, 252 home runs. He does lead the club in home runs. That's something that David Wright could not take from him. 733 ribbies, 580 walks, over 1,000 hits, 878 on base slugging, and over 35 wins above replacement. Just a phenomenal player. And I guarantee you, if you go to Citi Field any given baseball day, you will see 3 times as many Strawberry jerseys as you do Goodens. And so that was the deciding factor for me. It was close. I struggled with it, but I had to go Strawberry there.
And like I said, I think both of us are going to probably end up having our number 4s off the list here in the near future. But for now, I mean, it was one of those 2 guys, and they both definitely had controversies. A lot of docs also came after he was off the Mets. He did have a big one with New York, obviously. But both of them, I mean, brought a championship to New York, and both were very important in doing so as well. So there's our Mount Rushmores for the New York Mets. Mine, Tom Seaver, Mike Piazza, David Wright, and Dwight Gooden. Jacob, you had Tom Seaver, Mike Piazza, David Wright, and Darryl Strawberry. I had Darryl Strawberry as an honorable mention, along with, of course, Jacob deGrom and Jerry Koosman, as well as my 3.
Yep. Kingsmen was my honorable mention as well. 12 years with the Mets. Played second fiddle to Seaver, but fantastic number 2 starter. Has his number retired. That's a very big sign of respect from a team. 2-time All-Star, helped bring that championship home. And then Jacob deGrom. A healthy deGrom is the scariest pitcher to face this entire generation. He will be higher on this list by the time he's done with his career, so long as he stays healthy and he stays a Met. I mean, there is nothing else getting in his way here. Rookie of the Year, already has 2 Cy Youngs under his belt, already has 4 All-Stars, ERA title, just ridiculous stats, not even finished. He's already up to 44 wins above replacement. Career 2.47 ERA, over 1,500, almost 1,600 strikeouts now, under a 1 career whip. Just filthy.
Almost 50% of his starts, he's allowed 1 run or fewer in his career.
Right.
That's
I
insane.
saw that the other day. Just crazy.
If he didn't have the injury issues, he'd already be on the list. There's no question about it. He's one of the greatest pitchers in the history of the game. So there's our New York Mets Mount Rushmore. Let us know if you think it would be Dwight Doc Gooden or Darryl Strawberry who should be on that list. Or was it Jacob deGrom, or do we miss someone else who you think should be on there? Please let us know. We love hearing it. Next week, we will do another rival of the Seattle Mariners, the Los Angeles Angels Mount Rushmore. Could this be potentially 2 current players on a Mount Rushmore for one team? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a good one.
No.
Yeah, he doesn't play baseball anymore. It's going to be a fun one to dig back on the Los Angeles Angels. But that is actually going to do it, though, for this edition of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out. We will have a couple of shorter videos coming out later this week. We'll have a Mariners mini after they complete their homestand 2 more games with the Padres. And weekly, we will release an NFL picks video where we will make our picks for all the games of that week. So that is also going to probably come out on Thursdays as well as with these episodes, but it'll be its own shorter version if you just want to see those until you have time to listen to the full podcast. So those will be coming up, and we will talk more next week. Of course, we'll have some NFL Week 2 things to discuss. We'll learn a little bit more about some of these teams. Was Week 1 a fluke? Are they going to bounce back? We might also touch on a team who's headed in a different direction than the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Plus, who are some dark horses who can win the World Series in 2022? That'll be next week on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.